Welcome to the Northbridge Flute Academy, and today we're looking at the Morceau De Concours by Delibes. And this is a very, very enchanting little piece, but it's also quite tricky. And many things we have to sort of focus on in this. First of all, it's in D minor. And the first two bars are the first chord in the piano, no flute in the first two bars, D minor chord, followed by the dominant seventh chord. And of course the dominant seventh chord in itself orally gives an air of expectation. And the third bar is where the flute comes in, and the first note for us is a low D in the bottom octave. Well, of course, that is not a great note to start any piece on, and particularly when one has been given this rousing start of tonic dominant seventh, and then suddenly like a foghorn comes out of the flute. I don't think that's exactly what Delibe was hoping for. So that initial articulation is very important. It's marked mezzo forte. I would go for DAH, da. Now after that we then have an arpeggio going through the first bar, and the beginning of the second bar of the flute line is an A in the second octave. So in a very short space of time, as crotchet quarter note equals 96 or thereabouts, we've got to navigate from a very low note on the flute to a middle octave note, and so in the process of getting there we're going through the harmonic range. The only way we're going to make this sound convincing is by pushing air through the flute, so that once again we know where we're going before we get there. So don't play we sound like woodpeckers, and I know that this theme is quite bird-like, but equally we don't want to sound as though we're just sort of boring a hole in the tree. So da da ha 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 da 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 da. Now we've got 6 times or 7 times we've got an A, 6 of those times they're articulated. Again, direction to bar 6 is required here, and perhaps you might like to consider that with every A the notes become fractionally longer, and in that way we're creating direction towards the point of the phrase, which is bar 6. So perhaps something along the lines. Then after that, in bar 7, we have this motif. Now, all the right notes in the right place, in the right order, but they're not connected. And particularly in this area of the flute, E, F, G, D, E, F, G, in the middle octave, it's a very, very weak area of the flute. So we have to put energy through that. Once again, direction. And again, by creating that shape, we have expression. So something very important to look out for there. Again, we have the repeated notes in bars 13 and 12. And then come bar 21, we have a change of character. And this time, I think we can actually afford to be slightly more optimistic in how we play. So immediately before that, we've heard something mysterious, but also something quite, something good's happening, I think. So we can afford to change the sound different. Now, after this, in bar 23 and 24, we have quavers or eighth notes, staccato. Please don't do this. Because your flute teacher and I will want to invest in a gun, I think. So I believe that even though there's dots on these things, what is a staccato note? It's not a short note. It's got to be something that has got character in it. So for me, these 7 staccato notes, they should almost be like laughter. Ha 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 ah. So something, you can hear there's a cushion of sound there, and then we should have, and that's much better than the woodpecker scenario. In bar 29, we have a big interval from a B flat in the middle octave down to a G in the lower octave, which again is another Eeyore moment. We have to know where we're going before we get there. And in slow motion, you can see my lips. Now, of course, it's never going to be that much movement, but the thought process is of actually getting the air column to come down there. Bar 35, we start a sequence of about 4 or 5 bars. We've just got to A to B flat. Now, I could do this. As I say, right notes, right order, right time, but there's no character there. So we've got to create personality. And then we're back into the theme again. But this is a point where we've got to put energy through those half-step semitone intervals. Bar 43, once again we have staccato notes. Don't make them too short because it's actually the final 2 bars before the recapitulation. Moving forward then to bar 50, 1, 2, 3, bar 54, we have this motif. Fingers. So that finger again, one of the fingers which doesn't like to work for us. And I would suggest an exercise for that, something along the lines of and that exercise can be found in the 28-day warm-up book for all flautists. And along with numerous other exercises, we get your fingers in shape. Bar 62 into bar 63 and bar 64 into 65, we have large intervals to navigate again. And as I explained earlier, the most important thing is that you anticipate where you're going. And the first one is an interval down, the second one is an interval up, and they both require the same levels of anticipation. In bar 74, we have accents on the notes, and I feel in this piece, because there is nothing particularly angular, those should be quite padded accents, nothing too sharp, pointed or aggressive. Don't play and finally the last note is an A held for 3.5 bars, and in the piano there's simply a chord on the penultimate bar, so you're very exposed there. I think it would be good to start the final note with vibrato, but as you're making the diminuendo over 3.5 bars, that vibrato should gradually disappear so that the last sound should just be a pure A that disappears into nothingness.